Now, joining us from Badger 24/7, it is our guy Payne Blazevich. You can follow him on Twitter at Payne Blazevich. That's Blazevich, and then Payne's with a Y, Payne. Payne, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing really good, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on. I love all your work on Badger 24/7. You always are putting out great stories over there, and there's lots to talk about with the Wisconsin Badgers, both football, basketball, just nationally. Lots of going on in college sports right now, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. We just wrapped up basketball practice a couple days ago. Obviously, the Nyzier news, a little bit of recruiting news, so there's a ton going on right now in what really should be a quiet month.
Let's start off with the Nyzier news. That's the one that I really wanted to talk with you about. So Nyzier Fourqurean, Badgers cornerback, probably rostered to be the starting cornerback this season for this team, CB1. He has officially been denied his extra year of eligibility that he had applied for by the NCAA. They won their appeal, which overturned the injunction that would have granted the cornerback an opportunity to play this season. Like I said, he was expected to be a starter for this team. Were you surprised by this news at all? This kind of felt like the way it was going to go no matter what, but it seems like Nyzier was a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because I feel like there was a lot of expressed confidence when he had initially won his injunction back in February, and it seemed like that was the direction that things were trending. It didn't seem like the NCAA's rules were maybe going to hold up in court. I think there was a question of how much could you even enforce eligibility rules. So it seemed like there was a lot of momentum then. Obviously, Luke Fickell expressed confidence during spring practice that Nyzier was preparing and was going to be expected to play. But then the case got brought in front of the Court of Appeals in the spring, and it seemed like there might not be as much ground. It seemed like the NCAA was sort of gaining momentum, and it really was just sort of quiet on all fronts until, of course, earlier this week when the ruling came out. So it's frustrating, but I think it did seem like things were starting to trend that way.
So let's go from one former Badgers cornerback to another former Badgers cornerback that's currently in kind of some legal battle with the University of Wisconsin, Xavier Lucas. Do you think the ruling in this case for Nyzier Fourqurean will have any kind of effect on what's happening with Xavier Lucas? I know it's a different situation, but it all has to do with eligibility of the contracts, kind of what's happening between the NCAA and these players. And again, with all the other stuff that's happening on a national stage right now, how do you think how this played out will affect how other situations are playing out just within the transfer portal, within eligibility rules?
Mm-hmm. So with Xavier Lucas's case, I think the difference that might give Wisconsin some favorability is they're not suing the player, they're suing the university in Miami for tortious interference. And I think that the revenue share contract that Xavier Lucas signed, although it was prior to the House settlement, it was based on if the House settlement would be passed. So I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that should give Wisconsin some legal standing. It's a little bit different than Nyzier because Nyzier was arguing against rules that the NCAA had established and that he had signed up for. So I think there's a little bit more basis. But in terms of like across the country with other eligibility lawsuits, it seems like the NCAA is winning a lot of these lawsuits. I think there's about a dozen that are similar to Nyzier's. Of course, the famous one is Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback who originally played at JUCO, and after suing the NCAA was granted extra years of eligibility. I think that gave people a lot of confidence, but aside from that one specific case, the NCAA has been winning in the courts for the most part.
For sure. Talking with Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7. You can follow him on Twitter at Payne Blazevich. That's Payne Blazevich. If we head back to the current roster, now that you don't have Fourqurean, now that you don't have Lucas, what is the plan at cornerback for this team? It feels a little late to start making depth chart changes. You're starting to get into summer practices here. What's the plan for this team now?
Yeah, so at cornerback, they at least can rely on the returning experience of Ricardo Hallman. I think he's one of, if not the best defenders on the team, so you can at least be confident in one side of the ball, but opposite him, I think the Badgers are going to look at moving Jameer Latimer over from nickel to the cornerback position. He had originally transferred in the offseason from Jacksonville State, looked really, really good in the spring playing in that nickel role. Just a physical, fast. Badger fans that follow recruiting pretty closely might know that last name. His brother, Amari Latimer, had just recently committed to Wisconsin. But Jameer Latimer, I think he can be a difference maker. It seemed like he was going to be a difference maker in that nickel position, but he might have to slide over. Made a lot of plays for Jacksonville State last season, the season prior, so I think that he's the guy that they're going to put that confidence in, at least moving into fall camp. But I'm sure we're going to see a lot of competition for that second cornerback role, who might play at nickel, all of those things.
Do you think that was going to be the case even before this ruling came out about Nyzier? Was he, like, for sure locked into that spot, or was there always going to be this kind of position battle, guys shuffling around, kind of figuring out where guys are going to play?
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating part because he looked really, really good in the spring. He's only developed since he's been in Madison, and I thought that he looked great opposite Rico. I felt like he was going to be a guy that was just consistent, really solid in pass coverage, was a really good tackler. So I think that's the annoying part with this ruling is that we were pretty sure that he was going to be the starting guy.
For sure. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Houston. Got my guy Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. And we are talking with Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7. You can follow him on Twitter at Payne Blazevich. I want to head over to the basketball side of things. This team looks a little bit different. You said they just finished up their spring practices this past week. With some of these new additions to this team, guys like Andrew Rohde, who I went to high school with, I watched him play basketball there. He's coming back to the state of Wisconsin to play for this Badgers team. How excited are you about the guys like him that are transferring in? Do they feel like they have any of that John Tonji magic that we saw this past year?
Yeah, Greg Gard has a reputation for hitting on some of these transfers recently, and I feel like this group is sort of just going to be a continuation of that. A lot of those guys looked really good. They have 5 transfers coming in. You mentioned Andrew Rohde. I think Nick Boyd is also a guy to watch, but I think those incoming players just fit a lot of different roles in the front court, in the back court, and I think they're going to be sort of the engine that's going to push this team forward.
So, Payne, diehard Badger basketball fan for years. This team starting to look like it's got a deep backcourt, not only the starters, but our bench play looks like we could beat a lot of Big Ten teams with some of the guys who've transferred in. Should we expect for this team to kind of have a target on its back just because with a lot of the success we've had with guys coming into the program later in their career?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I can say yes, just because I feel like this team is a little bit underrated going into the year. I don't feel like I've seen much nationally. I don't feel like I've seen a lot of conversation around them. I feel like people just know that John Tonje's moved on, and that's really it. But I really feel like this team can be really good, but I don't think they're going to get a hype like a Purdue or a Michigan or even someone like Indiana who, is bringing in Tucker DeVries. I don't feel like there's enough conversation to feel like they'll even would have a target on their back.
Good. Well, I like when we're under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what this team might be.
So if we look at that guard position, a guy like John Blackwell, who toyed with the idea of going to the NBA this offseason, has come back. Greg Gard yesterday was reported saying that he's looked really good, that he's looked like a more polished player, looks like he has a different fire underneath him. What should we expect from a guy like John Blackwell this season coming back to the Badgers?
Yeah, I think the expectation for John Blackwell is to just slide into that leading scorer role. He was second on the team last year in scoring behind John Tonje, and I believe he led the Badgers in scoring in 11 different games last year. And like you said, there's just sort of a confidence, sort of a fire about him, and that's been clear since he's come back from the NBA draft process. There's just not the nervous energy, or I guess you could say, of a sophomore John Blackwell. He's confident. He seems poised. and he seemed in complete command of the backcourt a couple days ago.
What do you think happened at the NBA draft combine and throughout all the workouts that he had that resulted in him coming back to Wisconsin instead of going with an NBA opportunity potentially?
I think it just gave him an opportunity to get some feedback, to work out in front of teams, and I just don't think he was quite at the level of being a dominant scorer or being such a premier elite athlete that teams are going to be willing to take a flyer on him regardless. I think it made the most sense for him to come back at least one more year, get some more experience, get some more looks, get some more tape on film, and then I'm sure if he has the season that we're expecting to have, he might try this process again next year, and then we might have to see if he comes back for his senior season. But I think it made the most sense for him to just come back to Wisconsin and be the leading guy for this team.
I felt like a lot of times last year he was that physical role that we needed, Payne. And I think that that's kind of what's going to light his fire coming back from, okay, the NBA said I needed to put on weight. I need to be more physical. I need to be more physical on the offensive side, defensive side, and one-on-one situations. You're going to see a guy who I think, hopefully, and you can tell us better than my guesses, is a little bit more accurate from the outside three ball and off the dribble in one-on-one, two-on-two, high screen situations, and can kind of be that guard that goes amongst the trees and gets physical and gets us really big offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds and gets us on the fast break.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw a little bit of that on Thursday, even just in half court, in some full court scrimmage setting. He'd drive into the basket, might throw a shoulder into a defender. Like, that's the kind of thing that he needs to show on the year. Be more efficient with the rebounds, be great with defense. He showed some active hands on Thursday as well. And we'll get another look at him and the rest of the group this next Thursday before we break for summer. But I think that, like you said, just showing some of that physicality, showing some of that ability to sustain through a Big Ten schedule is going to help him a ton in that process.
He is Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7 here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. You can follow him on Twitter at Payne Blazevich. Payne, what's coming out on Badger 24/7 from you over the next couple weeks here?
Yeah, so we got more off-season football coverage really ramping up as we prepare to get into fall camp. Myself, John McNamara, are holding down the football stuff at home, and then my guy, Nick Osen, has been on the road for feels like a month or so, but he's been covering Peach Jam. He will be out at Big Ten Media Days. So we got all kinds of coverage coming in. Whatever you're looking for, football, basketball, recruiting, it's been so packed on Badger 24/7, and that's only going to continue as we get towards the football season.
I can't wait to see more, my man. Thank you so much for coming on, Payne, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Always.
Of course. There he is, Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7 here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.